up and see that, because you don't have to ask somebody else to go and get the money or transfer the money is concerned. User very convenient. You can use 24 hours a day, anytime, anywhere. You can go to Himalayas, you're doing yoga, and you can perform the transaction as long as your internet access is available to you. So it doesn't make a difference. You can go from anywhere, any place, perform the transaction as long as your digital token is with you. Reduce turnaround time, that's basically for processing, because it's a very simple process which goes up, verification process automatically, and you can store verification record as a part of the transaction which you performed with the banks. You can be stored. Instead of having the storing all the user number, passwords, you can store the transaction log into the system after verification by the digital signatures can be done. Very hard possible, any volume of transactions you can perform, and is secure, legally permitted, and is the only technology which is permitted for non-repudiation purposes in this country. Then finally is online mandates, information account origination process. We have the high turnaround time, one of the most important, because this takes very frequently. Number of transactions is enormous, which needs to be handled. At cost of storage, because remember that computer costs money. You need to have the processing, you have to have the infrastructure. Storage as well as the processing time is very essential. Highly depend upon the human effort. And finally, huge paperwork. You maintain those papers. So I don't know how many banks have huge information about these banking papers which they have created for creating the accounts and all the processing which you have performed. That is their lot of storage room and is real value. If you look at in a city, the cost of real estate is enormous, which the banks keep it. If you reduce that particular space, it can be used economically and it reduces such a cost also. Then finally, confidentiality information. Reduce turnaround time significantly, enhancing the customer information. It can be instantaneous, real-time cross-grade assessments, if you can see that, can be instantly performed. You go in a remote village. Recently I went to my village to do a transaction there, and I want to transfer certain amount of money from that account to all the way to Delhi. It hardly took me 20 seconds to transfer that money. It was there. Instead of taking a draft, carrying the draft with me, put in the bank, and the banks will take 24 hours to cash that particular. Here the money comes in 20 seconds, and I get interest out of it because I saved the time as well. So it's very easy to perform the transaction. Paperless transaction, no paper exists, everything has been removed, so you save the environment. A lot of environment is saved. No, don't have to, so many trees can be saved by using, supporting greener environment and reduce the cost and wastage. Integrated application documents is assured, tamper-proof, with highlighted immediately. Authenticity of the applicant verified through E-Mudra certifying authority. This is one of the E-Mudra authority which will provide. Basically, the verification process is done through the certifying authority. So you go to the banking, automatically send a transaction. But some of the banks do that, download all the list of the customers, valid certification, do the comparison. But we don't advise that, but sometimes banks find it advantage. But to overcome this high level of transactions in the country which you are taking with the banks, which you are taking with the banking transaction, we are going to get online verification system which you are going to create. This centralized system which will keep all the signatures certified, the list of the certificates which are being issued by the certifying authority, and the banks can access instantaneously these certificates to do the validation process. And after the validation is done, it will generate a report back, and the report is stored, that message is stored along with the transaction which you received from the customer. That's what we are going to do. So the online verification is a process which you are going to do that. It will be something similar to NSDL or the income tax papers which we are currently doing that. That's the process which you want. Because to increase the tempo, the fastness which you are looking for, because banking transaction, when they get into the system total line, you require a very fast, speedy way of doing that. This particular operation is going to be at the final stages of processing a tender. We hope that will come very soon, and it is going to be operated independent of the CCA office, but it's going to be funded by us completely to provide convenience to the banking and other online transactions. No storage involved. The banks can easily dispose of their computer systems and the storage which they use for storing the individual databases and passwords. They don't have to worry whether the individual has changed the password or user numbers, etc. These are all responsibility given to the certifying, because certifying authority is legally responsible for validating the customer. That's what it is. And non-repudiation. That's the most fundamental thing which we are talking. The whole mantra is non-repudiation. Finally, secure authentic inter-office email communication. This is the most dangerous thing which happens. Integrity of information. We saw what happened in CWC. I know what is CWC, I hope so. All of you know, Commonwealth Games. So it is very important for us, the information, the email is generated comes from the genuine person, and the content of the email is not modified. Authenticity in communication is come from what is supposed to have come from the individual that have been generated first. Storage of documents, repudiation of the agreements, protecting client confidentiality, protection against another use of PC or a laptop. The signer authentication, that's first fundamental application which we run. Then we do the method authentication, then non-repudiation, and the total turnaround time, reduce total turnaround time for digitally signed circulars, less paperwork. This saves enormously, comes to be found out. In fact, if you summarize that particular thing, as I said, the transaction cost from 8 rupees can drastically come down, and customer satisfaction will be very, very high, and individuals should be able to perform anytime, anywhere. That's basically the thing which you are talking about. 24 hours a day, the bank is available to you to perform. You don't come across the problems which you come, ATM cards and all those, these are all eliminated, because we are not using any, what is it called, the strips, magnetic strips behind the plastic card. We are using a crypto token, which is basically stores your private key. That's because of that particular. So paper processing is not there. In case in the customer experience, possible increase in revenue, the banks are supposed to increase the revenue substantially through the use of this particular digital signature. We expect the profits of the banks will go at least 10 to 20% by using the digital signature environment. Obviously, if you look at it, is it possible? Is it working anywhere in the world? Yes. This is what it is. The digital certificate in Korea is extensively using it. In fact, in one of the countries which I have seen physically, in the case of China, what they have done is the individual, because the certificate costs money. If you are taking class 2 or class 3 certificate, the cost of the certificate will be at least 100 rupees minimum, depending upon the supplier which is certifying the hardware. And then you also have to pay for the token, the crypto token which you are going to store your private key. So it's going to cost money. So obviously, the individuals will be very hesitant. Why should I invest my money to sign one income tax paper or to a banking transaction? So what is being done is that in the case of China, what they have done is they give freely the certificates to the individuals. Don't charge any money. So you give freely to all the customers when you open an account, like demat accounts, etc. The crypto token is given to you with your digital signature after you generate it up, and you can use it for transaction. What some of the banks does it, they will charge you for the transactions, maybe 10 paisa per transaction or whatever. Like in the case of a demat account, when your trading account is concerned, they charge you for the transaction. Similarly, they charge you for the transaction. Some banks, you say that since I'm making a profit and reducing my transaction costs by almost 70%, why not to give it freely to customer to get goodwill of them? And the major goodwill is trustworthiness. Increase the trustworthiness which you can perform. I think this is one has to look at it, and each bank has to, because my office does not dictate the cost of the certificate. It's an open market. Any company that is participating in the certifying authority agreement PKA structure can sell the certificate. The cost which they think is the right. And that's what it is. So it's an open market. I do not come into the picture. So it's a thing which banks has to decide how to go about it. Some of the things banks say, why not I become a certifying authority? Yes, you can do that. You can become a certifying authority, do that. But if you become a certifying authority, there is a legal requirement which has to be met. It's not the job of a bank to do that. But you are open. We are open to give to anybody the license to become a certifying authority as long as they fulfill the requirements as per the Information Technology Act is concerned. Obviously, the applications, internet banking applications, 18 domestic bank, international bank, post office provide internet. In fact, one of the banks are already getting into that. They're giving the digital certificate free of cost to some of the customers, and you see a lot of applications which will come into the picture. Users must use the accredited certificate in the banking services. Some of the banks also complained. I give a free certificate to the individual. This fellow go and opens account in another bank and uses the certificate, and because all the certificates are interoperable. Once you take a certificate, it can be used for any application in this country. So he said, why should I give a certificate which to be benefit of other bank is concerned? You need to work out some agreement by which, like ATM machines are concerned. You can go to any ATM and do a transaction. Similarly, the banks needs to work out, if I use a digital certificate to him, how best we can get the benefit out of him, how best we can share the resources concerned. Then online trading, 35 security operations provide accredited certificate based on stock-like series at this particular moment. One, online users must accredit a certificate for their recruit transaction. And finally, credit cards. You can also have digital certificate built up into the credit card, a smart card, smart credit cards which can be there. Because the present existing cards which you use in this country, magnetic strip, most useless, if I may so security point of view, that does not give you any protection in any way for us to do that. So you need to move over. These are all obsolete technologies which we are peddling in this country extremely well. I think you need to come out of the particular, you need to come up much better credit cards to do performance. In fact, I come across one of the banking coming up with a credit card having a rectangle square behind it and various numbers put in the rectangle square and ask you on the internet, give me square number 5, what is the symbol? You put the particular number. It doesn't give you much help. I mean, if I give a credit card in a restaurant, if he knows the number, he can as well photocopy the rest of the backspace and use it extensively. So it doesn't help me much. But whatever may be this is what it is. So credit card can be extensively used. This is some of the samples which I used it because we still not fully operational as far as the Indian banking internet activity is concerned. In fact, the same website can be used for using a mobile phone, exactly the same. Only thing, the content will be modified to make it convenient for what is it called, your mobile phone screen is concerned. People do perform also using mobile phone banking transaction using a digital signature. There is a different process which you follow to authenticate the individuals is concerned. It's not about that difficult. The technology take much of a big job. In fact, integrating the digital signature is not a big job at all. You need to work out with the applications and the way process is being done. In conclusion, they enhance the customer experiences. You can perform the transaction 24 hours a day, anytime, and the cost of transaction can be drastically reduced. It saves time for the banks as well as the individuals concerned. Addresses the serious issues of frauds which are there in banking sector. As of today, this is the only technology that gives you non-repudiation functionality, no other technology. Of course, you have to apply properly the technology. There are certain backholes which are there. If you don't properly apply the digital signature, it gives you problems also. Remember that particular fact. The total turnaround time accelerated, is improved total turnaround time, and finally, supporting the green environment. That's basically which we have. That's what they had. So digital signature is the way which you have to go to, whether you like it or, in fact, I used to say that a few years, about a couple of decades back, we used to talk about in the government, whether you like it or computers are going to catch you in this country. You cannot leave it. Today you see that everywhere you go, the computerization has taken place. You are accessing, whether literate or illiterate, whether you know English language or not,